History will consistently intrigue present-day ages. It snares the creative mind to find out about the legends and courageous women of ancient times, horrendous wars, misfortunes of incredible boats that sank, and startling huge-scope fiascos. A large number of verifiable books have been expounded on scandalous occasions that changed the course of history, and obviously, even in those days, photos have been taken to record certain minutes or individuals as expected. On this rundown are only the absolute most captivating photos taken all through the most recent 200 years, some of which might be lesser known than others. The first photo of the Sphinx of Giza. The Great Sphinx of Giza was fabricated over 4,500 years back, in a real sense a huge number of years before photography was imagined in 1826. From that point forward, crowds of photographs of the Great Sphinx and the Pyramid of Giza have been taken by individuals who came from all the edges of the world to see these lofty landmarks for themselves, as a piece of what is accepted to be the primary arrangement of photos taken of the sculpture. Maxime Duchamp snapped a photograph of the Great Sphinx with the pyramids noticeable out of sight, in 1849. By then the chest region of the Sphinx had without a doubt, as of late, been uncovered. Another photo taken in 1860 uncovered that further removal had revealed considerably a greater amount of the sculpture. Today, the whole Sphinx is obvious, including its tail that folds over the back and stretches to its correct back paw. Just the nose, accepted to have been a meter wide, is absent from the sculpture. The splendor of a mausoleum. The staggering Taj Mahal catacomb was appointed by the Mughal ruler Shah Jahan in 1632 to hold the burial chamber of his better half, Mumtaz Mahal. After Jahan passed on, his remaining parts also were buried in a burial place inside the sepulchre. This story took a turn for the abhorrent when a fantasy began getting out and about that said Shah Jahan cut off the hands and gouged out the eyes of all the specialists and craftsmen who chipped away at the Taj Mahal to guarantee they couldn't repeat its magnificence elsewhere in the world. The first ever photographs of the landmark were taken by Dr. John Murray somewhere in the range of 1858 and 1862. The primary photo of the Taj Mahal portrays a side perspective on the structure with the waterway Yamuna streaming before it. Boating on Yellowstone Lake. The Yellowstone National Park is home to Yellowstone Lake, the biggest waterway in the recreation center. Pre-memorable occasions saw Native Americans populate the forested areas and valleys encompassing the lake, with the principal European explorer to discover the lake, John Colter, doing as such during the 19th century. A fishing span was included in 1902, yet shut for fishing in 1973 after the quick decrease of relentless trout. In 1871, the main recorded boat cruised out on the waters of Yellowstone Lake. The Annie was cruised to Stevenson Island on 29 July 1871 and was a little canvas boat estimating 12 feet in length. The boat contained travelers James Stevenson and Henry W. Elliot. Van Gogh photo controversy. Vincent van Gogh is as popular for his delightful artworks as he is for removing his own ear. The Starry Night, the Yellow House and Cypresses are among his most famous craftsmanships. Van Gogh additionally made various self-pictures. However, just had 2 photos taken of himself all through his lifetime. One of the photos was introduced at a show in 1957, during which Belgian specialist Marc Edo Tralbo guaranteed that it portrayed a 13-year-old Van Gogh. In 2014, notwithstanding, a Dutch TV program utilized imaging innovation to age-transform the Van Gogh photograph and contrasted it with the other photograph of the craftsman, taken when he was 19. It was discovered that the photographs didn't coordinate. The Van Gogh Museum took up the issue and presumed that the 19-year-old was without a doubt Van Gogh, yet couldn't convincingly demonstrate that the photograph of the 13-year-old was for sure the craftsman. Numerous specialists presently accept that rather than the photograph portraying a teenaged Van Gogh, it indeed portrayed his sibling, Theo Van Gogh. R. Giles Docteville. Dinosaur fossils have intrigued the total populace for quite a while. Books have been expounded on these monster animals and motion pictures created that show them in the entirety of their previous glory. In 1898, an unearthing in a land development in Europe, R. Giles Docteville revealed a few bones having a place with a stegosaur. Novice geologist, scientist and paleontologist, Emile Saval, took a few photographs of the removal cycle and it turned into the most seasoned enduring photos of a dinosaur uncovering in Europe. Saval had discovered a strong square of Kimmeridgian limestone on the seashore. The square contained fossilized bones and, after he advised the Natural History Museum in Le Havre, it was affirmed that the bones had a place with a dinosaur. Saval kicked a bucket in 1902 and around then, the skeleton had not yet been recognized similar to that of a stegosaur, with it actually being portrayed inaccurately as an iguanodon in 1904. It was uniquely in 1911 that the Octeville bones were first effectively depicted as having a place with a stegosaur. The smiling hippo, a charming infant hippopotamus, was caught on an island in the White Nile and gave to England as a trade-off for deerhounds and greyhounds in 1850. Obeish, named after the island he was found on, showed up in London to the cheers of many energized observers. His new home, the Zoological Gardens, saw the quantity of guests twofold overnight. Obeish seemed as though he was grinning at whatever point he slept. And he was one of the main star creatures and the primary hippo to show up in Victorian Britain. Obeish got away from the zoo at one point and legend has it that an animal specialist was roped in his trap to help draw the hippo back into his fenced-in area. A subsequent hippo was shipped off the zoo in 1854, named Attila. Obeish and Attila created posterity 16 years after the fact. Yet misfortune struck when their initial two calves passed on not long after birth. A third calf named Guy Fawkes was brought into the world in 1872 and endured. Table Mountain Cableway. Table Mountain in Cape Town, SA has filled guests with stunningness and wonder for many years. In 1790, Lady Anne Barnard turned into the main Capetonian lady to scale the highest point when it must be done by walking. In 1912 plans for a cableway up the mountain began to come to fruition. On the 4th of October 1929 the cableway was formally opened. From that point forward, more than 20 million individuals have taken a trolley to the top, including Arnold Schwarzenegger and Oprah Winfrey, just as Sir Edmund Hillary and George Low. The absolute first streetcar that made the course up the mountain resembled a wooden box with windows and taking a gander at it today, it doesn't move a lot of trust in its capacity to move a gathering of individuals up the gigantic Table Mountain. However, during its long history, the cableway has kept a 100% well-being record without any mishaps happening since its initiation. Into the jaws of death. There are a considerable number of photos that have caught the frightfulness and misfortune of war. A portion of these photographs portray the ridiculous consequence of fights, while others show the mental impacts that the various wars have engraved on warriors and their families. Numerous photos have been made during move and reflect not just the awful conditions the fighters needed to live in, however, the alarming activities they had no real option except to undertake. On the 6th of June 1944, Robert F. Chief snapped a picture of American warriors landing from a LCVP at Omaha Beach during World War II. The photograph was named "Taxicabs to Hell and Back, Into the Jaws of Death," and the first inscription read, "American intruders spring from the slope of a Coast Guard-monitored landing freight boat to swim those last dangerous yards to the seashore of Normandy. Faux fire will chop some of them down. Their taxi will pull itself off the sands and run back to Coast Guard-monitored transport for more passengers." This photo accumulated the standing of being one of the most renowned photographs of D-Day. Very nearly 10,000 troopers were killed during D-Day. They were covered in the Normandy American Cemetery, which is situated on a bluff sitting above Omaha Beach. In excess of 1,500 warriors' bodies were rarely recuperated. Balancing on top of the world. In the event that you have a dread of statues, you probably won't appreciate taking a gander at this photograph. Acrobats Charlie Smith, Jewel Wadick and Jimmy Kerrigan played out an intrepid daily practice on top of an edge on the 86th floor of the Empire State Building on the 21st of August 1934. Nicknamed the Three Jacksons, the youngsters flaunted a mind-boggling difficult exercise which finished in them looking like a human figure. Kangaroos in Egypt. His is really an extraordinary photograph. Not exclusively are the Pyramid of Giza obvious behind lines of fighters. One of the officers is slouched before a kangaroo. Of all things, kangaroos and different creatures were carried everywhere on the world during the First and Second World Wars by Australian soldiers who were glad to serve Australia. This is the way the kangaroo in this photo made it right to Egypt. A few warriors even carried koalas and possums. Numerous Egyptians were alarmed at seeing the marsupials in their nation and spooky scared of them, until they were educated that kangaroos were innocuous except if incited.